in these next few minutes will be said to encourage you, to cause you to grow and develop in your walk and relationship with the Lord. At the end of the message, or while I'm preaching, you may go right online and make your contribution, your tithes and your offerings to the City of Hope members who are at home or watching from some other place, that this ministry may be supported by your investment, your giving, and your contribution to the life and work of the City of Hope. And we pray that the same Holy Ghost is here, will be there with you, charge you and challenge you and encourage you today. If you would turn to Genesis chapter 32, verses 22 to 31. I'm reading from the New King James Version. You'll follow along with me in your translation, and that's before you on the monitors. Genesis chapter 32, verses 22 to 31. Here begins the reading of the Lord's word. And he arose that night and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed over the ford of Jabbok. He took them, sent them over to the brook, and sent over what he had. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. And now when he saw that he did not prevail against him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" He said, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For you have struggled with God and with men, and have prevailed." And then Jacob asking, saying, "Tell me your name, I pray." And he said, "Why is it that you ask me about my name?" And he blessed him there. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. Just as he crossed over Peniel, the sun arose on him, and he limped on his hip. The word of the Lord. On a given night, so many have gathered around their televisions, often waiting with bated breath for their favorite or their least favorite wrestler to be introduced from their respective corners. You know, in this corner, and in this corner we have, and in this corner we have. And here's what that might sound like. It's a slow fight.
Tonight, we are going to witness the most anticipated match in the history of professional wrestling for the heavyweight championship of the world. Are you ready? Wrestling fans, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, from the capital city of the United States of America, Washington, D.C., ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Michael Buffer is known for this announcement, which could be entertaining as the fight itself. The truth, though, someone is going to win and someone is going to lose. The winner, however, would not leave unmarked or without bruises. And the narrative before us today is that of a wrestling match that ended with a blessing. I want to talk to you today from the subject, Let's get ready to rumble. Tell them people in your pew, the fight is on, the fight is on. You've heard the phrase, and perhaps at some time or another used it, desperate times call for desperate measures, meaning that actions that might seem extreme under normal circumstances are appropriate during adversity, whether real or perceived. You have witnessed over the past few weeks and days. People everywhere have, in a panic and in fear, emptied the shelves of grocery stores. BJ's and Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart, mom and pop stores, the department stores, clinics, schools, universities, and some churches have closed. Clorox wipes, disinfectants, Lysol, hand sanitizers, which were a few dollars, have inflated in prices. Never knew the value of toilet paper until the coronavirus. 2 to 3 hours checkout lines, and people have waited and waited and waited. You would think that people didn't know to wash their hands and to keep living and working areas clean. Desperate times. We should think again when we are in judgment of people who hide at the bottom of boats and air cargo planes and swim across oceans, not for the sport of it, but the desperation for a better life. We have been on information overload. We have heard facts and fiction. We've heard from the smartest, the brightest, the wisest, and the best informed among us. We've also heard from the dumbest and the less intelligent and the uninformed. Serious matters have been reduced to sniffles and sneezes. While panic and fear will kill you faster than a disease, so will denial. And what I mean is acting like what is happening is not. Desperate times. Denial is a sophisticated way of believing a lie that you know is not true. Jacob is at a place of desperation, and he is about to face the consequences of his own choosing. It's full-blown family feud. His family is in conflict. Both Jacob and Esau was self-sabotaging. Esau saw no value in the birthright when he believed he was going to starve to death. And Jacob was a trickster trained by his mother, bought a birthright for a bowl of beans. When his father Isaac was about to die, he called for Esau to bless him, according to Genesis 37. And Jacob went in disguised as Esau and received the blessing. And when Esau knew about it, he set out in anger and promised to kill Jacob when he caught him. Jacob has a series of conflicts and misfortunes and disappointments. He marries a sister that loves him, but he does not love. He works several more years to marry the other sister that he loves, but does not love him. It sounds like Grey's Anatomy, The Secret Storm, The Edge of Night, The Bold and the Beautiful, The Haves. Yeah, I thought you'd know. Like Jacob, there comes a time that there is that moment in life when your running has exhausted you. Your bag of tricks are now empty. There's nowhere else to go and no one else to turn to. It's a desperate time for Jacob. His departure from Laban was conflicting. Neither one could trust the other. It's that verse that's often quoted as a benediction. But you should probably read all of it because it's a contract being made. And the contents of the contract is like this. I can't trust you. You can't trust me. So let's gather these stones together and just pile them up so that we both know that in between us are these stones, because you can't trust me and I can't trust you. So let's stop fighting and let's part in peace. Some of y'all going to have to say this to somebody before the day is over. And here's what they agreed upon. May the Lord watch between you and me while we are absent one from another. This is not a benediction. This is not a blessing. But this is the prayer between enemies. And here's what else they say down in the verse. Since there is no man to watch you or me, let God be the surveillance for us both. I probably could sit down now, but I'm not finished. The truth is, you got to know when to stop fighting. Try you again. The truth is, you got to know when to stop fighting. And the worst fight that you could ever try to engage in is to fight with somebody who's already in a fight with themselves. You outnumbered. Because the thing about people fighting with themselves, when you offend them both of them will turn around and fight you. Never go into a fight where there's nothing to win. Or what you think that you're trying to win has no value. You got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them. You got to know when to walk away. Bishop Hilton taught me the rest of the song. Don't you count your money. Y'all know it. While you're sitting at the table, and I don't know the rest of it, but you got to know there's nothing here to win. Sometimes you just got to know when to leave people and things in the hands of God. Let him do the watching. The enemy's prayer, may the Lord watch. Desperate to stop running to make peace with a brother he has wronged, he sends gifts to his brother. Yet he feared and panics what his brother may do to him. He's divided his company into two with the thought, if Esau attacks one group, the other group can escape. In other words, lose some in order to save some, but don't lose all. The practice has not changed and is yet prevalent before us today. Lose the poor to save the rich, and it trickles down in all aspects of life today. It's desperate times. And while Jacob's gifts offerings and peace offerings went before him, he took time to separate himself from the company of those who traveled with him. Jacob was left alone. Jacob was left alone. And if you are in dire straits, and if you are desperate, and if you have run until you are exhausted and can't run anymore, then do what Jacob did. Go be alone so you can be with God. Be as desperate for God as you may have been for Clorox wipes and hand sanitizer and mask and toilet paper. Be as desperate for God as you would for anything that you passionately want in life that will bring only a moment's relief and only a moment's pleasure. How bad do you want God? How bad do you want God? You all have witnessed people doing desperate things, trying to get somebody who don't want them. I don't understand that. I'm not able to. Maybe you all can help me with that, especially when somebody says, I don't need you, I don't want you. It's a different thing when they say, I want you, but I don't need you. Well, there's possibilities. And it's also a different thing that says, I want you, I don't need you, but I want you. But when they say, in a plain sentence, the whole line, I don't want you and I don't need you, it means all options have shut down. All doors have been closed. There's no further conversation. There's nothing where our minds can meet together. What makes you keep pressing into someone's life who has shut it down? Some of you think I'm talking about dating. Well, I am talking about dating. But some of you got friendships where you're giving more and receiving nothing. It's a one-sided relationship. Friendships, relationships, fellowships mean that everybody that's involved is giving something. But there's a time that you need to sober up and pay attention. Because if your wallet is the only one that's open, if your kitchen is the only one that's open, if your refrigerator is the only one always standing open, if your closet is always open, if your ATM card is the only one in hand, there's many signs, there's many signals, and there's a whole lot of warnings. This is a one-sided relationship. And it comes that moment when you have to say to yourself and everybody else around you, I need to stop giving away what I need to keep for myself. Now, if you say amen, I might move on. I might. Secondly, don't be passive. Don't expect something to happen while you sit back and be an observer. Nothing happens until something moves. Don't just sit there. Go and see what God will do and can do for you. Jacob is left alone, and a man wrestles with him until the breaking of day. This was not a choreographed fight. It was a rumble. This was not a nice fight, if there is such a thing. This involved grappling with his opponent and trying to throw him or force him, the man he wrestled with, to the ground. It was not a quiet fight. There was rumbling. Let me go. Not until you bless me. I'm just going to preach to me. Let me go. Not until you bless me. You got to understand, these are two grown men rolling on the ground and one trying to get loose, and every time he gets loose, the one that wants to bless him reaches out and grabs him again. It's like being in Macy's, better yet, being in Marshall's. Their advertisement of their materials, of their goods, is absolutely beautiful until you walk in the store. When you walk in, there's stuff everywhere. There's no order to the displays. But you know, you got people who shop in chaos. I'm trying to tell you something else. See, you gotta have a spirit of, let's get ready to rumble, because I came to get what I came to get, and I'm not going to leave here without it. And if it's in your hands, I'm going to snatch it out your hands, because that's the Marshall's spirit. That's the way they shop. I want to tell you, I walked in Marshall's twice in my life in New York. And when I walked in, I stood in the middle of the floor, and I'm sure the people behind me were not very happy and had selective things to say to me. Mister, you in the way. And actually, after standing there for a few minutes, they didn't have to tell me. I felt in my spirit. This was not the shopping for me. Because I can't snatch and grab. I work too hard for my money to walk in a store and fight and grab over. So you want it, you can have it. This is not the place for me. Y'all see people fighting. If not, stick around until Black Friday in November and watch how the folk, well, I guess if the virus is still around, they may reconsider. They line up, they leave turkey, mashed potatoes, and macaroni and cheese to go stand online, to sit in a parking lot, to stand online at Walmart for a 75-inch HDMI HD color TV. The TV is bigger than the room. You can hardly pay your mortgage or your rent. And the TV is so big you don't even have to turn the lights on, because when you turn it on, it lights up the whole apartment. And folk will fight. It's disheartening to me to see women with their fists balled up and speaking in a tongue that's known. The words they say I can't spell, and if I could, I would. But the fight is on to get what you really think you want. The truth is, after the fight and you get it all plugged up and working, it's a TV. It's a TV. You're paying $300 a month for 2,000 channels, and you only watch 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 10. Own channel, and maybe the shopping channel. Every now and then you might go to HBO, Netflix, and YouTube. And if you're watching at night, if you turn it on at night, you're not watching it, it's watching you. And you did all of that fighting to get a neon sign to keep your house lit. And you're still empty. Jacob said, I have too many mishaps. I have too many disappointments. I've made too many bad decisions. I can't run anymore. I've got no more tricks. I've got no way to get out of this except you bless me. So the man yells again, let me go. Jacob yells back, not until you bless me. We need a prayer meeting like that. We need a prayer meeting. I don't know how long the fight lasts because, narrative time and narrated time are not the same. The way I tell it to you, I tell the events as if they're happening in a sequence very quickly. But to actually live it, we don't know how long this fight went on, but we do know at the break of day is when it ended. There's some fights that last all night long, and you've got to be willing to engage in the fight until you get your blessing. Say to somebody, please, not until he blesses me, not until he blesses me, not until he blesses me. Thirdly, how long did the wrestling last? I don't know. The man pleaded to be let go because it was about to be daybreak. And if you can rubble to daybreak, and if you can just know that God can't let you go, that you can't let God go, you can't let him go until you get your blessing. Don't give up and don't give in. Wrestle through the night, wrestle through your pain, and wrestle through your disappointment. Roll and rumble because your change will happen if you just don't let go. That's the encouraging word to those of you who have came here today who are as exhausted as Jacob. Lord, help me. Every now and then you feel like walking off and never coming back. A friend of mine and I were talking past few days about a lot of the suicides that we've heard about amongst the clergy, those that were publicized and those that weren't. And he said to me, I can't put a bullet through my head, and I don't want nobody to find me hanging from a ceiling. He paused, and he said, I don't want to go out like that. And my response to him was, not everybody hangs. And not everybody shoots themselves. But there's some people who look forward to going to sleep and just not waking up. So while you may not want to go that way, just always know there is a way to go. And I'm not trying to give anybody any ideas that you don't already have. But here's what you also know about failed suicides. Sometimes you don't die. But many times you end up living trapped in a body that just won't work. I don't want to go out like that either. But I want to say to you here today is that you've got to press like Jacob did. Don't give up until the miracle happens. Don't give up until the blessing happens. Don't give up until the turnaround happens. If you don't let go, God will bless you. Yeah. Lastly, the change will happen. The man asked Jacob, what is your name? Not that he didn't know, but Jacob needed to acknowledge who he was, what he was, where he was. And he responds, my name is Jacob. And here's where the change came. Your name is now changed. and you will be called Israel. For you have struggled with God and man, and you have prevailed. You have prevailed against man, and you have prevailed with God. What you were coming into this fight is not what you will be coming out. Your name going in means supplanter. You took the place of your brother, and you were a trickster and a deceiver. But now coming out of this fight, your name means prince with God. Your going in and your going through will bring you out better than you were when you went in. I'm coming out better. How about you? I'm coming out better. How about you? How about you? I'm coming out better. I'm to the end of this, but I don't know if you ever watched the Mike Tyson fight. We had a group of church mothers here back in the day who liked to fight. It was something to see them blue-haired, gray-haired, hat-wearing, bifocal-wearing mamas. Did you see the fight last night? That boy fight like a girl. All he had to do was punch him, get him down and punch him. That's the church mother who's about to call on Jesus for all of us. Just punch him. The thing about a Mike Tyson fight, though, is you better have all your stuff gathered together. Because when it starts, it's going to end soon. And if you walk out the room, you're going to miss the knockout. Well, I need to say to many of you here today, today's your Mike Tyson day. Your fight is about to end. Your enemy is about to be knocked out. You're going to be God's champion. Your fight has been planned for 12 rounds, but it's going to end early. Because God knew you were coming, and he had your victory waiting for you. Are you ready to rumble? Are you ready to rumble? Mother Boomer would say, y'all fight like girls. Are you ready to rumble? Here is where I will end. It's impossible for you to have an encounter with God and leave the same way you met him. There will be times that your blessings will come with a limp. It may not always be noticeable to others, but you know it's there. This encounter was transformative. It was a drastic change, but it left a limp. What about this limp? The limp would remind Jacob of what he was. It would remind him of that tonight we rumbled. It would remind him the fight ended with a drastic change. He will never again be what he was or who he was. Things will never be what they used to be. Your blessings have a limp. Not to cripple you, but to remind you you didn't let go until you got your blessing. And so people may still have called him Jacob, but whenever he walked, that limp remind him, you're a prince with God. You're a prince with God. You know, there's some fights you come out with minimal bruises and scratches. But the bigger the fight, the bigger the limp. And the limp will remind you, I know what I was, but look at what God has done for me now. Look what God has done for me. Don't despise your limp, because it tells the story of your blessings. I'm going to close, but I want to tell one of my friends' stories. For many years, she was a heroin addict. And if any of you know about IV users, desperate for the drug, they use every vein they can find until they can't find any. Then they'll put the drug in eye drops, drop it in their eyes. Desperate for the drug, they'll shoot in between their toes. Anywhere where the poison can enter the system and relieve the pain. For many years, she had used all of the veins in her hands because she had used them all in her arms and everywhere else in her neck. Desperate for a change, she came to faith in Jesus Christ in a prayer meeting. All of her appearances, anything visible except for her hands, changed. She never asked God, why didn't you fix my hands? She never asked God. You fixed all the rest of me. Why didn't you fix my hands? And when people would ask about your hands, are they swollen? She says, no. This is my limp. The rest of me don't tell the story like my hands do. She would tell the story of how desperate she was to get her drug and to use her drug. And if you don't know drug addicts, or if you've been one, you know that using the drug is not as the rush in getting the drug is as much of a rush in using it. My statement used to be, your day may start on zero, but it won't end on zero, because you're going to find a way to tell a new story, to get what you need to get, to do what you need to do. And she would say, my hands tell the story of how I could have killed myself, but I didn't. So I'm not worried about pretty. I'm just glad I'm alive. What's your limp? What reminds you of how God delivered you? When you sing that song, He brought me out of the miry clay. He placed my feet on the rock to stay. He put a song in my soul today, a song of praise. Hallelujah. What's your miry clay? What's your deep, dark secret that God didn't tell, but He reached for you in the dark and brought you out? And while He was bringing you out, all that the dark had done to you, He had transformed you, and you look spanking brand new. Somebody invited you to church today. They annoyed you. They pressed you. They aggravated you. They called you every day, 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Don't forget Sunday. Don't forget Sunday. Sunday. And your response was, yeah. And every now and then when that happens here, folk get here early so they can meet the person that invited you. See, I got here before you. I want to say to you, don't be upset with them. It wasn't really them. It was God. Because He had something for you. And He used them to get you here so He could give you what He had waiting for you. A wonderful change. A wonderful change has come over me. Now I know we can't have the prayer line and all those things, but what you can do, use your social distance skills, whatever those are. Any one of these aisles that you want to stand in, just do that. And while they sing to prepare you for prayer, we're going to pray together. Because maybe what's bothering you is not 30 years ago. Maybe it's 30 minutes ago, 30 hours ago, 30 days ago. It's not too old and it's not too new that God can't fix. Are you ready to rumble?